The title given to the fifth episode of Rings of Power Season 2 was Halls of Stone. This title is taken from the part of the Ring poem, which talks about the rings made for the dwarves. In this episode's major plot was the dwarves getting the rings and the influence of the rings on them. The episode began showing the 7 rings placed in front of King Durin. He wears one of them and uses it to help rebuild their infrastructure and bring sunlight back to Khazad-dûm. In Eregion, the elves and the dwarves celebrate the success of the dwarven rings, and they unveil a new gate for Khazad-dûm, the Doors of Durin. Sauron, pretending to be Annatar, asks Celebrimbor to start work on the 9 rings of power for men, but Celebrimbor opposes this by saying that men are corrupted and they can't be given such powers. After hearing this, Annatar says that he will make the rings by himself, even if Celebrimbor doesn't help. In Numenor, Pharazôn asks his son Keemon to prove his worthiness by giving him the task of removing everyone who remains loyal to the former Queen Regent Miriel from their current rank. Elendil is also stripped of his rank. Gil-galad receives the letter from Celebrimbor saying that the forge is closed. Gil-galad is having visions of disasters that Sauron may cause. In Khazad-dûm, the ring makes the king greedy. King Durin asks the other dwarf lords to give him half of their riches in exchange for the other rings of power. Dissa gets terrified after hearing the sound of the Balrog, which is beneath the mines. She tells this to Durin. The king decides to mine deeper as he is becoming more and more greedy. Durin tells his father about what Dissa heard, and he says that there is something evil living beneath the mines and warns him to stop the mining. But the king avoids this warning. In Eregion, an elven smith named Merdania is transported to the unseen world while testing new ring designs with Annatar, and she sees Sauron's true form. Annatar convinces her that she actually saw Celebrimbor, and this is the effect of him making the rings which are too powerful. Meanwhile, in Numenor, a memorial service that Elendil and other members of the faithful are holding in Numenor's oldest shrine is interrupted by Keemon. Keemon then destroys a sacred relic. Elendil punches Keemon for doing this. This leads to a fight between Valandil and Keemon that ends with Keemon stabbing Valandil from behind and thus killing him. Keemon then blames Elendil for starting a riot and orders to arrest him. Durin IV meets Celebrimbor and tells him about the dwarven ring manipulating his father and asks whether Annatar has anything to do with this. Celebrimbor then asks Annatar whether he has done anything to the dwarven rings that was not done to the elven rings. Annatar says that this is because Celebrimbor lied to Gil-galad about making the dwarven rings, and this has caused the negative impacts arising from the dwarven rings. Annatar then convinces him that making rings for men will solve this problem. After hearing this, Celebrimbor agrees to help make rings for men. Durin IV meets his father and tells him about the negative effects of the ring. But the king says that there is no problem, and he congratulates Durin IV for bringing Elrond to Khazad-dûm, which led to the making of the rings, and he reinstates Durin IV as his heir. Elrond returns to Lindon and warns Gil-galad that Adar and his orc army are marching to Eregion. Gil-galad realizes that all of this is part of Sauron's plan, and he tells Elrond that the elves cannot defeat Sauron and Adar alone. As the orcs arrive at Eregion, Adar proposes an alliance between himself and Galadriel because Sauron is their common enemy.